in a way that says, well, I recognize that I am male, but I also recognize that male and female are part of the same thing. They're just different aspects. So let's understand one another better. And then it's fascinating and it's fun and it's enlightening, and you don't get that separation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, variety is the spice of life. Like, I love the duality. I love how that consciousness is expressed in this world. There's actually a beautiful art to it. The way even the way we walk, the way we interact with people, it's a beautiful expression of duality. It's just seeing past the illusion that we're separate. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that we're not dual. Of course we're dual. Like you said, we still. It would be wonderful to have an experience as a female, and maybe we have before. Mm-hmm. But in this experience that I'm having now, I haven't. But like you said, to try and understand is what the great thing is. To try and understand that perspective, and in that there's a unification in that understanding. In this world, there's no understanding, and it's just like, there's a wall there. You're separate to me. Don't cross that wall. Don't cross that line on the ground. But when you step into a non-dual state of consciousness, into the one consciousness, then there is that trying to understand each other, understand another nation, why they do it, understand a religion, why certain vows are there, understand, why women like to do this and why men like to do that. Mm-hmm. So there is a beautiful art in it all, and a beautiful essence to learn. It's just, we need to be rooted in that it's all us. Even though it's dual, it's still all us. We shouldn't operate from those modes of separation. That's when you are living through an illusion, when you are operating through those modes of illusion. Surely those modes of illusion are there, but when you are operating from them and when you are violently supporting them, then that's the problem. It's so fragmented. It doesn't, like we were talking in the break, Larry, just about how fragmented it gets. It gets down to the minuscule level of I'm a sporting team, I'm part of a governmental party. It gets pretty crazy when you get down to those modes of thinking of separation. Mm-hmm. But even when we see that, there's still that diversity, there's still that duality. So for someone who has had the moment and understands more, just observe it and just try and understand why they live from that existence. You may have lived from that existence before, and I admit that I have lived from that existence many years ago. So I can understand where they are on their journey. And that's not said out of arrogance, it's just said out of a pure observer state.
I love in your book that when we talk about this, what we've been talking about here, what separates and what causes wars and all that stuff, and you mentioned that you mentioned truth as a key concept in all of this, and that conflict is based on the fact that I accept one truth and you accept another truth, and so we go to war over whose truth is better. I loved a friend of mine named John Amy once said that he says, I come with my dogma, you come with your dogma, and we have a dogma fight, So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. But then you talk in the book about there is one truth that we can find in which we can all find agreement. And maybe you could say something about that.
Well, yeah, whose truth is right from a mental and a physical standpoint. That's what we need to understand. There's levels of truth, I believe, out in the physical world. But every man's truth is another man's untruth. We see that. That's why I discussed in the truth chapter, and actually throughout the whole book, that we are operating from those separate modes of thinking, and we are applying whatever that thought system is as that's the truth. And it's like, no, that's not the truth. That may be a level of truth to a physical and a mental standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, there is only a singular truth. When we get down to it, everything comes from one source. Everything comes from one divine light. We can't ignore that. And that's within all of us. And that's actually the only truth, that everything is singular. It's one. Now, I know that a lot of people will not resonate with that, but when you peel the layers back of your own existence and you step into that non-dual nothingness state, you don't just intellectually know it, you feel it and you live by it. Now, that's the distinction between levels of truth and truth. Like, there is only one truth, but there's levels of truth over the top of it. Mm-hmm. But those levels of truth are different. Like, you and I, Larry, that's why I mentioned in the truth chapter, there's something called the resonating truth, where you may resonate with something as a human being from a physical and a mental standpoint, but someone else may not resonate with that. So that's just your truth, not their truth. But to violently live by that, that's where the problem is. So to stay centered in what that truth is, and that truth is that it's only one. Everything is one. There is duality here, but it's only here to be experienced, and it's here to be enjoyed, and it's here to acknowledge that we're one, that we're all the same thing. We can dissolve the space between people in the understanding, like you mentioned before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, the image that just came to mind for me when you were talking was a huge jigsaw puzzle, and every piece is different. So every piece has its own truth. It's the truth of the whole puzzle as it works for that piece. And if the piece recognizes it and acknowledges it and says, yeah, this is how the truth is coming through me, and this is who I am, this is what I need, these are my skills, this is what I do, but recognizes that it's just part of a much larger piece, a much larger picture, I'll get it out, and that picture is the picture of truth. And it's not that because I know this is right for me, that it needs to be right for everybody, or even that it needs to be right for me all the time. You know, it's right for me now, and that's part of the truth. But the truth is fluid, in a sense. Yeah. You know, people think of truth as being, you know, written in stone, but to me, that's not. Truth is fluid. It moves, exactly. And one has to move with it and recognize that what you say, that one truth, but what within that one truth is resonating in my heart right now that tells me I need to be this piece, so when I fit in here, the whole picture makes sense.
Exactly. Well, I like to use the electricity analogy when we talk about that unison. Like, when we have electricity, we have the manifestations of electricity. But what is the electricity? So when we speak of truth and of consciousness, mm-hmm. What are the manifestations of consciousness? It's us. Like, you know, we see. That's the beautiful thing for me. You know, we see the lights and all of that. We see the lights and the fans, and that all comes from the one electricity. So that's, for me, the best way to describe consciousness is we are a manifestation of that one consciousness, just expressing itself in a different way, expressing our truth in a different way. There was somewhere where I was going to go with that, because you mentioned something before, but it's escaped my mind now. It doesn't matter. But, but yeah, for me, that's how I describe it to people with the electricity analogy, because that's a beautiful thing at how that one consciousness is expressing itself in its diversity through all of us. And we don't need to be so attached to our ideas in our mind and even our physical body. Like, these are instruments to experience this reality. Doesn't mean that you should abuse your instrument. Keep it in good condition and put beautiful images within the mind and express reality, you know, in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well put. I was wondering, as you hear from people, as you travel, things come to you, do you get the impression that the mass consciousness is moving in the direction that we're talking about, a direction of supporting peace and oneness, versus the conflict and separation that has marked so much of our experience? I mean, yes, we still see wars in the world, but do you see a movement in that direction?
I do, but I see it in different stages. I see, say for yourself, Larry, like, if I was around you and another human, and observing it, you may be a little bit more understanding of what that consciousness is, what that oneness is. Someone else may interpret it as, you know, we're one with the planet as physical beings, you know, like, which is still a beautiful thing as well, because they're acknowledging that they're still part of this blue and green ball. But I just see that it is moving forward, but in different stages, through different people, through different understandings, which is still great. It's that like you said before, there's still that diversity there, which is a beautiful thing. So that's what I see, but it's a slow moving thing. As we sort of come around, like I actually believe in cycles of time. So when we are on an ascension of a cycle, this is the awareness that becomes ingrained into the psyche of man, is that, you know, we are not separate from one another, but it evolves differently through each human.
Yeah, exactly. Well, our time has flipped by so quickly that we've got to wrap up right now. I'm sorry to do that so quickly, but we've been enjoying Jason Gregory. And Jason, just give out your contact information one time real quick.
Okay, you can contact me on youtube.com/oneworldwithin, twitter.com/oneworldwithin, or through Facebook, and by email at jasongregory@hotmail.com.au.
Okay, I want to thank you for a wonderful time we've had here. Thank you to our listeners for have been there, and we hope that you visit us on What We Need to Know every Thursday at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to What We Need to Know with Andrea Isaacs, Michael Gaeta, and Larry Pearlman. To learn more about Andrea Isaacs, go to www.enneamotion.com. That's ENNEA motion.com. To find out more about Michael Gaeta, go to gaetacommunications.com. That's GAETA communications.com. And to find out more about Larry Pearlman, go to www.sunriseranch.org. That's SUNRISE ranch.org. Stay tuned next week at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and every Thursday for What We Need to Know.